Hi, and welcome to the Arlene Show. We are so excited to join you again today. This week, we have an exciting show planned for you because we have a special guest with us today. So, once again, I am Arlene, your host, and I am a business consultant and life coach, helping you to move forward from that challenge, from that pain, from that difficulty, and help you to be able to achieve the goals and be the best version of yourself. Now, today I have a special guest with us, as I said, someone who is not only going to tell us how to move forward, but more specifically, she's going to help us to move forward with our finances, with our money. So, everybody knows that part of the process in terms of moving forward would always be our finances. Because if we don't have our finances in order, then it's very hard or challenging for us to fly to London on that vacation or to fly to the Bahamas to vacation and party and to feel really well. So, we're going to get some insight from Sophia Melonē, the debt demolisher, on how we can clean up our finances, move forward, and be the best version of ourselves from a financial perspective. So, welcome to the show, Sophia Melonē, the debt demolisher. Hi,
I'm so excited
to
to be
see
here with
you.
you, Arlene. So good to see you. Thank you. Thank you.
Trust me, not as excited as I am. I haven't seen you for quite a while, and it's great, even though we're in quarantine, it's great that we have this time to be able to get together and hear your story. So, first and foremost, I want you to be able to tell us a little bit about your background story so that people understand how you became this expert in finance that you are.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Well, my story starts from a long time ago in a long space. So I am a caregiver and financial provider to my mom, and I have been for a very, very, very long time. And prior to that, one of the things that I had experienced was really insecurity in my money and in my finances. And what that caused me to do was to spend uncontrollably. It caused me to really not truly love myself, and it showed in my finances and my financial reports. And I learned how to revamp my financial life. And it took me over 30 years to do this because I landed in six figures of debt before the age of 30. I had
Six figures of debt.
six figures of debt, over $365,000 of debt before the age of 30.
And you're an accountant.
And I'm an accountant, right? So managing the money and the books and the financials for major corporations and lots of numbers, but my personal finances were a wreck. And honestly, I felt shame around that. I felt disappointment around that, but I did not know what to do or how to get out of it. And honestly, it was an unconscious movement. And I didn't even really think that there was a way to have out, right? Because I was taught that if you didn't have bills and if you didn't have debt, then you were a nobody. So what did that result me to?
Sorry.
Bless you. What did that result me to end up doing? Charging and putting myself in debt because I thought that that was the norm.
Oh dear. Oh dear. So there was method to the madness, as they say.
Yes, indeed.
So you had a lot of debt, but you had it for a good cause.
Somewhat.
You weren't just buying Gucci shoes and, designer bags. You were doing things you needed to have done, right?
Yes, and also a lot of giving. Giving. I was spending a lot of money on other people. A lot of it.
Okay. Okay. So, like many of us, that is the story because, especially in this time during quarantine, there are parents that are home with their kids and they have to spend on them. Actually, quarantine has kind of helped the financial situation for some in that they're not buying the designer shoes and the bags unless they're buying them online, in which case they still could be making purchases. But the only stores that are open now are like your grocery stores and that kind of thing. So take us now to the next part of the journey. So you had all of this debt. You were still being a good person in terms of what you were doing. So you really shouldn't have felt guilty in the sense that you weren't buying designer bags. But now, how did you go about or fancy dresses, I should say. But how did you go about now reducing that debt and getting that relationship with the money where it needed to be? And what does that look like for us who maybe have good jobs and in the past and have made some funds, but still may not have the best relationship with money that we should?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing was I had to become aware. And because a lot of my financial choices were unconscious in that they didn't have a true clear purpose for me. I was just doing things out of obligation or doing things out of routine. I didn't have that conscious awareness. And so the first thing that you want to do is face the reality of your situation. And so what I did at the ending of 2015, we all know before the new year, we set our New Year's resolutions. We want to wonder, what do we want our next year to be like? And I had participated in this workshop, and it was talking about looking at every area of your life, right? And so when I was going into the process of developing my New Year's resolutions, I got to the money piece. And I asked myself a question. I said to myself, out of all of the money that I earned this year, right? How much is actually in my bank account? And so I did a comparison where I took my year-to-date pay stub at the ending of the year, compared that to my ending bank balance in my bank account, and the two did not match. I had $9 and some change in my bank account when I grossed over six figures in income. And so my question was, whoa, where did all of my money go? And so what I had to do was go back and backtrack to find out where all of that income that I earned was going. And where was it going? To debt payments, credit card payments, car loans, personal loans, houses, all of these things. And so because I went back and traced all of the debt that I was in, it was a shocker, right? So you first have to become aware of where you are in order to be able to move forward. And depending on how high your number is, it may cause you to step back and say, "Ooh, I don't think I can do this. I don't know if I can." And
Right,
you have
right.
to make a conscious choice and decision to decide if you're either going to stay in the debt that you're in and continue to incur more, or you're going to pivot and do something differently to get yourself out of it. And so
Okay.
once I faced the reality of my situation,
And
put
you
all
had to
that
decide what exactly you were going to do. So
correct.
I've written a book. It's called The 10 Secrets to Getting Unstuck. Here's the book: 10 Secrets to Overcoming Fear and Getting Unstuck After COVID-19. And the step number one is what you just said, which is why we're discussing it, which is getting clear about what you want to do. So take a snapshot of your current situation. So I think a lot of times with the finances, people are spending and we're just not being conscious of what exactly we're spending on.
Correct.
So there may be this wonderful vacation, and I'm constantly thinking about vacation because that's something that I enjoy. So vacation in the Bahamas that we really want to take, but instead of focusing on that big thing, we're buying these little things here and there and spending our money and not really being conscious of what it's being spent on. So in your particular situation, you were spending it on debt, so you were doing well. But how did you then go from, I guess, paying off those debts, but paying them off in a more conscious way? And also, in terms of, I guess you had to start paying yourself first in
Correct.
order to begin moving forward. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So the first thing is putting yourself on a plan. And I had to develop a strategic plan and a roadmap on what I was going to do in order to position myself for greater wealth and greater legacy. And so once you sit down and you look at your specific position, where you are and where you want to be, then you can begin to create the roadmap and the plan on how you're going to get there. So what that looked like for me was putting myself on a budget, being aware of where my funds were going at all times.
Budget. Oh my, that's that
Yes,
word.
right. A lot of people
Yeah,
don't like
is there a
that
nicer way to put that? Is there a nicer word that we can use that is more
word. Yes,
inviting and welcoming?
Yes, I was actually going to say that because a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
my clients say that they don't like the word budget. And so if you don't like the word budget, and if that word doesn't ring well for you, change it into a word that does. And so that may look like your legacy plan. That may look like your financial freedom plan. That may look like your wealth growth plan. That may look like any terminology that resonates with you the most. And so if the B word, the budget word, doesn't work for you, find a word that can allow you to connect to it in a way that's going to cause you to want to do it, right?
I
So
think that's the
budgeting
key
is
piece.
not
That's a key
budgeting is
piece,
not necessarily a
wanting to do it. Because a lot of times, as you said, there were emotions and feelings tied to the finances. So you were spending on this particular thing, but you were feeling really bad. You were spending on that, but you were, feeling constricted and feeling negative. But if we can begin to look at it from a more positive perspective, which is why I bring up the Bahamas trip, because that's something that I want, that's something I enjoy, that's something I like, that's something that makes me feel open, and begin focusing on the thing that we really want and less focus on that debt, which we really don't want to pay off, which we're really being bothered by, then we can begin to perhaps take those steps that we really should be taking. But we haven't been taking because we felt so distressed and pained.
And a lot of times too, Arlene, is we avoid things that have a heavy or maybe even sometimes traumatizing experience on us. And that's the main reason why I focus on relationships with money, right? Because if we aren't clear on what caused us to acquire the debt that we are in, that caused us to operate in the behaviors in which we do as it pertains to our finances, or if we don't focus on what did we actually see, like were we taught to pay ourselves, right? I can
Right.
tell you, I was not taught that. I was taught to to take out loans, charge, and spend. I was not taught. So I changed that order now. I pay the Lord, I pay my tithes, I pay myself, and then I pay everyone else. That's my order. And that's one thing
And
that I want to recommend to other folks as well.
okay. And one thing we didn't say that we need to say is that you, Sophia, are an international speaker. Like you've spoken in other countries about this particular topic. So you're not only speaking from the perspective of the content, like the books, because you're an accountant yourself, you worked in corporate America, but you've also experienced this in your own life and you were able to turn it around. So
Mhm.
anybody who is struggling with this can certainly tap into your knowledge and wisdom and truly glean to go on to the next level. So that leads me to a different slant. So there are some people like me who may have come into something. And it's quite the opposite because even though we're looking at it from a negative perspective because you're draining out your funds, what about people sometimes who come into some funds, but because their relationship with money is not where it needs to be, it's not stellar, then it's still as if they didn't have it, as if they had the debts because their relationship is such that they really want to, they don't feel comfortable having it. So I'll give you an example. Myself, I came into some and I spent it because I didn't really feel like I was comfortable. It was someone that passed away, and so they gave it to me, and I felt like that person had invested so much and worked so hard for it. I almost felt guilty to have it.
Mm, mm.
So, what are some of the things that you would say to somebody like me who may be in that situation? And I
That's
know another lady who, it's not just me, there's another lady, she came into some because her father passed away and she got an opportunity and a position that the father had held. And so she came into a lot and then she didn't feel worthy of it either. So, okay, tell us what we should do and how we should think.
You just hit the nail on the money because I was just going to say that ties
We're
into
so attuned.
that ties into your level of worthiness. And so what I would say to you is for you to just really think back about who you are as a woman, who you are as a human being, what you are deserving of. Because at the end of the day, if you have someone that is passing down a legacy to you, that means that they thought so highly of you that you deserved it. And so what I want to encourage you is not to allow some level of disappointment or some level of fear or some level of guilt block you from the blessing that you so truly deserve. And so if they believe that you were the person who could have been entrusted with this amount of resources, then be an exceptional steward over it. Focus on that. Focus on your level of worthiness and tell yourself that you have not only that discipline, you have that control, but you have that core responsibility to be able to manage it effectively and do well with it. Because at the end of the day, that is why we are going through this process of building wealth so that we can transfer it. And so if you know that that's an issue or a thing that comes up for you, not just you, anyone who's watching, but if you have a legacy that you're going to be passing it down to, you have to make sure that you're building them up worthy wise so that they can be able to receive it when you then pass it on to them.
That is a key point that you just made. I don't know in general if, as a culture, we have done all that we can do in that area. I think that that's definitely an area that we can work on, prepping the young people, the next generation, to think about being wealthy and not just thinking about it from a personal perspective, like, wow, I'm going to buy this diamond ring or I'm going to buy this, Lamborghini. But how am I going to facilitate the generations to come with this wealth? What can we do to help the, I guess, next generation to look at it like that as opposed from just a personal perspective?
Well, the first thing is you have to begin to introduce the conversation to them. A lot of times in communities and households, we don't talk about money. We
Right.
don't talk about estate planning. We don't talk about the value of the assets that we have. And the hard part is because the children may not know, when they do come into possession of it, the first thing that they're going to do is to convert those assets into liquid cash and then spend it, right?
Go buy a fancy car.
Go buy a fancy car, right? Go buy a
Go buy
fancy
a fancy
car.
car.
Exactly. And so because we aren't introducing the conversation in our households early on, it's causing people to really think about instant gratification things as opposed to generational wealth. And I think the biggest thing is just to have a conversation, educate yourself so that you are aware effectively and can be able to have those healthy conversations with your children and with your loved ones and with your families so that they can know that this is something bigger than just you. They can know that this is something that is bigger than just them, but they can know that this is something that is for their children and their children's children. But we have to be comfortable with having the conversation. The thing is, we don't. So how can we do that is the question.
Okay. So part of the problem or the challenge, because not a problem, but part of the challenge is that we just continue to do whatever we've always done, and we do what our families did, what grandma did or what mommy did. And so if it wasn't a positive, then the cycle continues. But even though you kept going up and increasing your debt, there was a point at which, when you got to that 300,000, where you said, okay, that's it. I need to begin to do something about it. So what was the catalyst that made you hit that ceiling and say, okay, this is too much? And for some people, it's 100,000. For some, it's 50,000. For some, it's 20,000. But what is it that made you make that transition?
The catalyst was seeing the number.
So 300 was your number.
But the thing is, Arlene, because I didn't really know what the number was, right? So I knew that I had all of these different types of debt, but I didn't look at it in aggregate to see what the total amount was. And so honestly, when I first saw my 365 plus number, it shocked the bejesus out of me. And I said, how did I get here? I'm not even 30. How did I get here?
That's
How?
almost 400,000 in debt.
Yes.
So even though you're making six figures, you're doing well. I mean, people are applauding. You went to
Mhm,
school, you got
mhm,
the great job.
mhm.
I mean, but
I
it's,
was
I mean,
still
and a lot of it too was probably college debt, correct?
Well, majority of it was mortgage related. So my biggest debt was the mortgage, and then of course the next one was the student loans, and
Mhm.
then my car. Well, no, my credit cards were actually more than my car loans. I had credit cards that totaled about 40 something thousand dollars, and then I had my car loan, and then a personal loan. So those were the orders of my
And
debts.
that's what they tell us to do.
Hmm.
Go to college, take
Hmm.
out loans.
Hmm.
So what if they're high? You're going to make money later on. You're going to make, six figures plus. And then buy a house.
Hmm.
Those are very positive things.
Yep.
So, how do it just begs the question, like, the whole paradigm is wrong then.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to think about what is it that you really want. A lot of times we allow society to form our financial decisions or our choices in life, right? Because this is what the norm is and this is what society expects. But is that what you really want? Right? Is that what you really want to do with your life and with your resources? Do you really want to spend, like you said, two, three, $4,000 on a designer handbag
Right.
or on some designer shoes? Is that really what you want? Or are you doing that to impress upon someone else? One of the things that one of my coaches say, Lisa Nichols, she says that what gets celebrated gets repeated. And I tie this into financial behaviors when I'm assessing not only myself, but the clients who I work with, right? So if what gets celebrated gets repeated, you just mentioned that, right? You said that a lot of times we get celebrated for the high education.
Absolutely.
We
Yes.
get celebrated for the fancy car. We get celebrated for the big house. So what is it that we continue to strive for? A bigger house, a higher paying job, a higher
Yeah.
level position, a higher level this. But does that really fulfill you? So we have to think about how can we celebrate ourselves on a level that's going to be authentic and true to us and not what we feel like we want to be celebrated for by someone else externally. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you had it to do over again, and it's not even that we're saying you can't purchase those phenomenal things, like diamond rings, and I love fancy jewelry as well, but perhaps the timing on
Mm,
it. So perhaps we
mm.
have to be more cognizant of the timing. So maybe not early on, maybe wait until after you have, invested and you have the residuals, and then you can spend on those big purchases. What do you
Yeah.
think is the secret?
Yeah, I share this with my clients all the time and I tell them it's nothing wrong with wanting what you want.
Yeah.
It's a matter of planning for what you want. The thing is, we have an issue of instant gratification.
In our
We want
culture,
what we want.
absolutely.
We want it right now, and we don't care if we have to put it on a credit card. We don't care about how much interest it's going to cost us, how much the debt is going to cost us over time. We don't think about that. We just think about can we manage the minimum monthly payments, right? But if we take a step back and just think about how is this going to, again, fulfill me internally? How am I going to make a choice that makes me feel fulfilled and not feel fulfilled externally?
Exactly. I'll give you a story, quick story. I was in Florida and I wanted to go to Disney World. And they have these sites that say free tickets if you go through this, what was a timeshare presentation.
Mhm.
So I didn't know it was a timeshare presentation, but once you got in and they started talking, we're like, okay. But we wanted the free tickets to go to Disney. So the guy kept focusing on which one is the problem. Is it the down payment or is it the monthly payment? And it
Mhm.
wasn't either. But he was so accustomed to people just saying, okay, the monthly payment is manageable, I'll do it, that he kept pushing that question. And it was neither the down payment nor the monthly payment. It's that I just wanted the free tickets to go to Disney. I really wasn't trying to buy a timeshare.
Well,
But it really spoke to me. And eventually the guy was so annoyed that he, kind of yelled at me and was like, "You need to fix your financial situation because you can't afford this small monthly payment." And I thought, wow, he wasn't listening. I said, "I really just don't want it."
mm,
And so I guess that speaks to the culture that we're just so accustomed to saying, "Okay, I want this. Can I afford the monthly? Okay, let me purchase it," rather than looking at big picture. Well, is this going to prevent me from taking my Bahamas trip? Is this going to prevent me from doing something that I really want to do, maybe for my family or my friends or even for my husband?
yeah. And it's about thinking in advance of those, of what could potentially come. Not only thinking about highlights and experiences, but also thinking about those anticipated expenses, right? So those things that come up that we know can come up, but we haven't effectively planned for them, right? So that's just a huge thing that we have to make sure that we do plan accordingly, look at our resources, look at our funds, our highs, as well as the things that can come in and impact us and hit us at a low, which could be like a high appliance replacement or something along those lines, which typically we don't plan for. So
Right, right. Okay, so we talked a bit about the problem. We've talked a bit about our culture and the challenges that we have. What if you were a young person now going to college, having all of the knowledge that you have about finance and debt? I know of a young person who's going to college right now, and she showed me the package that she got. And just for the first year, she's a bright student. They want her to take out a $26,000 loan, and then the parent loan is another $10,000, $12,000, and there's no out-of-pocket cost. It's supposedly a great package. Plus, she's getting, all of the other grants, the Pell and the TAP and the this and the that. So this is presented as an ideal package because there's no out-of-pocket cost. If you were that young person going to college now, what would you say to that person?
I would honestly say, number one, that you should have been applying for scholarships. But if that did not happen at that point in time, I would strongly encourage them to think twice before they take out the loan and then ask themselves, is there another way to fund this opportunity, right? To fund this, because everything is every opportunity comes at a cost. And so you have to decide how you are going to weigh that cost and how you are going to navigate it.
Okay, thank you so much, Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, for being with us today. Your knowledge is so expansive and wonderful, and hopefully we're all going to have our finances in much better shape thanks to the time that you have spent with us today. We would love for you to tell us how we can get in touch with you so that the people that want to reach out to you can.
Sure. So I can be found at sophiamelonē.com, SOPHIAMELONE.com, or you could also find me at my company's website, smashdebtinc.com.
Excellent. And I am your host, Arlene. You can find us at askarleneshow.com. It was great being with you today, and I look forward to having you on the show again. Will you agree to come back?
Yes, I agree. I'll be back.
Great. Excellent. Bye-bye. Have a great day. See you.